Mr. President, I rise today to once again call attention to the crisis at our southern border, the very crisis the Biden administration refuses to acknowledge, and in not doing so fails the American people. It is a simple fact. There is no national security without border security, and everyone knows our border is anything but secure. We have the numbers to back it up. For starters, more than 8.2 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border since Biden took office. To kick off fiscal year 2024, there were over 240,000 illegal immigrant encounters in October, the highest monthly total ever recorded. This comes after a record-setting fiscal year 2023, which saw more than 2.4 million encounters. Of the 2.4 million, at least 169 individuals are on the terror watch list. But what's really frightening is that these numbers only reflect the known encounters and doesn't even include all of those who evaded law enforcement, the gotaways. Border officials estimate that there were 1.7 million gotaways, any number of which could be on the terror watch list, living in our country with who knows what intentions. Even with all of this information available, the administration continues to break all the wrong records. In the last several weeks, daily records have been smashed time and again, with known daily encounters ranging from 10,000 to 12,000. For context, President Obama's DHS secretary said 1,000 a day overwhelms the system. We have heard from officials such as FBI Director Wray expressing his concern regarding the ability of terrorist organizations to exploit any port of entry, including our southwestern border. Warnings such as these should not be ignored, and yet it appears this administration will continue to do exactly that. But encounters are only part of the ongoing crisis. In October, over 1,300 pounds of fentanyl and over 9,500 pounds of meth was seized. And that's only what it was seized. Estimates show this is only 5 to 10% of the illicit drugs coming across the border. These drugs continue to run rampant in our communities at a devastating cost, including in my rural state of Mississippi. The CDC says overdose deaths are up from last year, meaning more and more families and communities are being broken apart by the circulation of dangerous drug smugglers across the border. And even worse than the drugs being smuggled across the border is the humans the cartels are smuggling. Mr. President, I have spoken before about my trips to the border, the one earlier this year, and the horrific stories of girls 12 to 16 years old being smuggled against their will has stayed with me. The human trafficking industry has grown in the last several years to a $13 billion industry, and this will only continue to grow if the border continues to be an access point for traffickers. I do not blame the brave men and women working to do their best to help patrol the border. I blame solely all of this on the Biden administration and Democrats for their unwillingness to work in a serious manner to help secure the border and keep criminals and drugs out of our communities. Border Patrol agents are not given the resources they need to stop the never-ending onslaught of migrants, drugs, and traffickers. Even the border security's provision in the President's emergency supplemental request amount is just more money to process illegal immigrants, with no real policy or enforcement reforms. I am hearing from the law enforcement back home in Mississippi and how the crisis is affecting my state. And many have said today every state is a border state because of this crisis. On January 18, 2023, a Mississippi Highway Patrol trooper made a routine traffic stop. In the vehicle was an illegal immigrant driving without a license, an additional 3 illegal adult males, and 1 7-year-old migrant child. After Homeland Security investigations were contacted, the driver attempted to flee on foot and was captured by the HSI, determined the child was not related to anyone in the vehicle. Charges are pending on the driver, and HSI is attempting to identify the child and reunite him with family. In another incident on October the 9th, 2023, a Mississippi Highway Patrol trooper identified another illegal immigrant driving on I-10 in Jackson County with no ID. A passenger, also illegal immigrant, revealed that they were on their way to Houston, Texas to pick up another man, a woman, and 3 or 4 children. After a legal search of the vehicle, items consistent with human trafficking were discovered. A Border Patrol agent was notified, and turns out the driver was a repeat offender, illegally re-entering the United States after deportation. If I'm hearing from law enforcement in my state, I know that my colleagues are too. I applaud the efforts of the Mississippi Highway Patrol and the U.S. border for taking action, but the fact remains, if the resources were already at the border, this would have never happened. Senate Republicans have shown Americans time and time again that we are ready to take steps to stop the growing threat at the southern border. Unfortunately, our Democratic colleagues will not take action with us, appearing afraid to anger their radical base. Giving our Border Patrol agents the means to do their job is not radical. Fortifying our border by ending catch and release, closing asylum loopholes, finishing the wall, and supporting law enforcement officers is key to our national security, and we owe our citizens no less. I, along with my Republican colleagues, will continue to work towards solutions, and I invite Senate Democrats and the administration to join us so we can finally secure our borders and keep the American people safe and alleviate the Biden-caused humanitarian crisis at the border. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.